Yep.
Let me know once it's on. I'll start.
Yeah, we are getting. Let's go.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Mumbai Tableau user group. Uh, this is our second meeting for the year, and we have some very cool speakers this time to speak on two very interesting topics. So, first of all, I would like to welcome you all to this Mumbai Tug, and the another thing which I wanted to cover before we jump into the stuff which we are here for is Iron Wiz. So Iron Wiz qualifier is on. It runs for 1 month. It starts on 1st of October till 31st. So if you are interested, this year qualifier theme is entertainment. You have any personal data or anything you are interested in, you can create a visualization, upload it on Tableau Public, and yeah, enter into the Tableau qualifier round. And if you are those lucky ones, talented ones to get into top three, you'll be competing in the Tableau conference next one. So yeah, this is interesting times. And if you want to, the link is here. We will post this in the chat as well. You can just go on the link, read about it, go into the stuff which was there for the last year and before years. There are many interviews with the finalists as well, so you can get pretty much a lot of inspiration from that as well. So anybody interested, go on for that. And in any questions about Iron Wiz, you can enter into the chat as well. All right.
Uh, eh, Jyoti, I believe the slides were not changing, so can you just check?
Is it not changing?
No, I we can see the PPT. It's
Oh,
probably
sorry.
in the presentation mode.
Are they changing now?
Nope,
Oops,
not
sorry.
yet. Yeah, now we are on the InViz slide, but it's still in the design mode. It's not in the presentation mode. So this
Is it visible now?
no, nope. It's in the design mode. Probably want to stop sharing and reshare it.
Mm,
It's
all
okay.
right.
Maybe you can just click and change
Yeah,
for now.
Just give me 1 second. I'll reshare.
I think the IronViz has always been in limelight because of the shiny blazer, right?
uh, I have very much enjoyed wearing shiny blazers at
Yeah.
Ironbiz. For those who don't know, I've hosted it since 2018. But the shiny blazer should never outshine the contestants.
No, it
Oh,
adds, it complements to the glitter.
Yeah.
we always look forward to what Andy is going to wear, both the shiny blazer and the shoes.
The
Don't
shoes
forget
were
the shoes.
amazing this year. Yeah.
Yeah, shoes were the awesome.
Yeah. All
Yep.
right.
Now we are
Let me know
good.
if it is visible
Yeah,
now.
it's good. It's good, Jyoti.
All right. So we'll post the link in the chat. If you are interested in Ironwiz, go for it. Uh, all right. Is my next slide visible? Sorry, I'm just testing it
Yes,
now.
yes, yes,
Yep.
yes, yes, yes.
All right. All right. So before going on, I'd like to introduce myself and my co-host Viraj as well. So I'm the Tableau Public Ambassador. I live in Mumbai. If you are interested, you can meet me in person if you are in Mumbai. I would love to talk about data, analytics, visualization, or anything you want to talk about art as well. And I'm working currently as a senior associate at JPMC. And if you want to connect with me, you can connect on LinkedIn and Twitter as well if in person is not possible. But yeah, if you'd like, I would be very happy to meet you in person. Now I'll hand it over to Viraj to just introduce himself.
Hey, hi,
Over to
everyone. So my name's Viraj. I am a lead analyst at Merkle. I am a proud returning Tableau ambassador this year. So it's my second year as a Tableau
Yay.
Europe ambassador. Yeah, thank you. And I am, I like. always call myself like Tableau newbie at heart. So like I'm always learning new things with Tableau. So you can always find me probably posting a lot about newbies tag, because that's the other tag that I'm a part of. But I'll also be keeping the Mumbai tag active. So and you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and maybe an easier way is to just Google data tastemaker, and you can find me through multiple social media platforms. Okay, so moving ahead, so we have two wonderful speakers, and I believe like most of you them probably know them, or they're already, if you're following them, but then it's a great opportunity to hear them and hear them at the Mumbai Tag event. So the first speaker we have is Vani Agarwal, and she's going to talk about formatting dates. And she's a data visualization engineer at Expedia Group, and she is a three times Tableau social ambassador. And I believe she's super enthusiastic with data visualization, and I kind of want to meet her only for to meet her dog. I am not sure what's his name, but I would love to meet him or her, and you know spend time with you as well. So over to you, Vani.
Thank you so much, Viraj. Thank you guys for having me at the Mumbai Talk. Pleasure.
Yeah.
As Viraj said, I'm currently working at Expedia Group as a data visualization engineer. And give me a second, I'll just quickly share my screen. Yeah.
Sure.
And along with that, I'm also co-owning the Tableau Buddy user group. If you haven't heard of it, maybe look it up online. Um, Today we'll be talking. I'll quickly show you some tips and tricks on how to best format your trend charts. And I think today's session is going to be pretty heavy on the date and trend charts, giving Andy's topic as well. Besides that, if you want to connect with me, you can find me on multiple social media handles, which I've mentioned below. So, without wasting any more time, I'll just quickly move to showing you what I'm going to do today. All right. So I'm pretty sure all of us here, whoever uses Tableau or any other BI platform, have to make a lot of trend charts, probably daily or at regular basis in our work. And I've seen many times in my own company that many teams who are not don't specialize in BI like us, they also have to create a lot of charts for random data analysis, and usually their charts look like the one which I have at the bottom. And I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me that you cannot really read this chart, it's not understandable, right? And that's mostly because when people make a trend chart, a lot of times they have data for multiple years and not just one. And when you show something on a daily or even weekly or monthly level, your chart might look so clustered that you can't even understand anything. So
Sorry, Vani, are you sharing screen again? It's probably stuck at your intro slide.
no. Oh, 1 second, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I think that's the baby thing. I know, I'm for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying. 1 second.
Yeah.
One, if you're sharing just the PPT screen, that might not
Can
help. You
you?
can share the whole
Yeah,
screen.
we can see the
We see
workbook now.
line charts.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah,
perfect.
line
So
charts.
sorry, guys. So
No worries.
yeah, so till now I was just saying that the bottom one is what charts look like if you just randomly make them and don't do any formatting. And I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me that this is not at all understandable, and that's because when you make trend charts and you do have data spanning over multiple years, it might look very clustered. So it's always a best practice to add some formatting padding and also some filtering to your data so that it becomes shortened and it's easily readable like we have at the top. Now there are few small formulas which you can easily make to shorten your chart size and also to make it dynamic. For example, right now what we see is data on a weekly level, and that's why maybe I'm able to see some points so clearly. When I go on a daily level, my chart becomes a little more clustered. Like look at the bottom chart; it's impossible to understand now. And the top chart is also looking a bit weird because how the superstore data is. So ignore that. But the point is because the chart has become shorter and your access has become shorter, it's much easier to focus on the recent data points and analyze your data easily. And similarly, if you go to the monthly level, it's again the same story. Now, if we add some more formatting to our chart like I've done here, it looks a lot better. I've seen many people, they want to add labels to their chart because they want to be able to quickly see the numbers. And what they do is they end up adding the marks label on all the data points. Now, doing this makes it much more difficult to read. And many a times your data points just overlap onto each other, which makes it, I mean, there's just no point of adding the data points if they are not readable. You might as well add your data points in tooltips and always have a y axis so that people can understand or judge where your lines are, and always go on the tooltip to see what the actual value is. Now, as a practice, what we do is I always like to format my charts. I like to add the small dot at the end of my chart so that it shows that it's ending here and not just leave it hanging in the air. And also add the data. I'll rather add text marks card over here to give an understanding of to the range of my data, and also y-axis so that people can easily now read it. Also, if you see the bottom chart, you'll see there's a clear difference of padding which I've added over here. If you see the data points, the endpoints, it's mostly overlapping. Over here, the 20K is overlapping so much, so on my point that maybe a lot of you can't really read the two. So one thing which you can easily do is add a buffer. Now, if I remove my reference line, you will see what I'm talking about. So what I have done, I'll quickly show the calculations after this. But if you remove this buffer, which I've added specifically for formatting purposes, your labels are practically invisible again. So having them or not having them again becomes the same thing. So how can we get all this? What are the formulas for all this? So I think the first one is whenever to get the small circle, what I do is I always make my chart into a dual axis. I have only one measure value, so I quickly add one more. And the second one, I make sure that it's a circle mark type so that I can get these circles. Now, if you only do this, you will get a circle mark on all your data points. But I only want it to be on my last point. So I also add this function, which is last equal to 0, which finds out the last point in your trend chart, and I put that on size. So what that does is it makes sure to increase the size of the last data point and have small circles on others, right? And then you can just simply go to your line chart and make sure that you have clicked on show mark labels at the end of your line. So it will just make sure that you only have the labels at the end of your chart. Now, how do we add the buffer? This buffer thing is actually really cool. We have been playing around with a lot. The logic behind this is what you want to do is you first want to find out your last data point. Over here it's 1st November and we are on the monthly level, so right now it's just basically the month of November. I want to find the last data point and I want to add certain number of dates ahead of it so that it gets some extra space on the x-axis, right? So I've made a simple formula which basically finds out the end point. I'll show the formula as well. This finds out the end point of whatever period I am on, and basically adds X number of days for my each date granularity. I have day, week, and month. So when I'm on a daily level, it basically adds 3 days. When I'm on a weekly level, it basically adds 8 days. And this changes around depending on the amount of space you have on your dashboard. Right now, if I go back to my dashboard, I only have three boxes over here, which are pretty huge. So adding even 3 days is making a lot of difference. But there are certain places where you have to have maybe 5 boxes or 5 API boxes. So the space reduces. And that's where you might need to change this number. So these can be changed as per your requirement. It's a simple trick. I just found out the last point and I added certain days to it. And once I've made this, I basically put that on my details and make it an exact date. And I go back on my axis and I just add a reference line, which is basically my x-axis buffer. I'll just switch this off because I don't want my users to actually see these labels and tooltips. And you see how my axis has moved on to left, giving some space on the right. So this is basically the padding which comes up on the chart. And if we quickly see the reference line start formula, it whenever you are on a weekly level, it basically finds out the week which I am on. And to say what end date is, end date either could be the maximum date of your data, the last point, or in my case, I've actually made a parameter called end date, which moves my axis as per the user's requirement. So if I want to see data before 15th of December, I'll just click 15th and my axis will start before the 15th. Right now it's on a monthly level, so you can't really see the difference. If I go on a weekly level, yeah, you'll see data only till 4th of December and not for the weeks. You can always have this or not have this. Again, it's up to you. But this reference line starts basically find out the week or the day or the month that I am on, and then the date adds the number of days to my axis. Now, one more difference which we can clearly see over here is that the bottom chart, when people make trend charts, like I said, they could have data for multiple number of years or multiple number of months also. And if you add all your data on your chart might look so clumsy that it's almost not readable. Most number of times when I've actually worked with my stakeholders, they usually have wanted to see data for maybe the last couple of months, focusing on the last couple of months. Or if they're on a daily level, they usually focus on the last 30 days. They don't usually go a lot back than that. So what I do is I always make an access start filter, which basically cuts my data or filters out my data for n number of days given my date granularity. So let's say when I'm on a daily level, I've usually seen that people want to only analyze the last 30 days worth of data and not more than that. So what I do is I check if my order date, which is basically my date, I add, which basically I subtract because I've done a minus 8. From the maximum date, I just go back minus 28 days when I'm on a daily level. When I'm on a weekly level, I usually go back minus 12 weeks. You can make it as much as you want. And when I'm on a monthly level, I go back 8 months. Now, this is where end date also comes into handy because let's say um your stakeholder does not want to just go minus 28 days, but wants to also see some date behind that, before that. So they can change their end date to go back few days. And let's say right now it's 15th of December. If they go back to 1st of December, they will be able to see data 1st of December minus 28 days. So they can also change that around. And to go one step further, we can always make it extremely dynamic. We can have both start date and end date so that people have a range of data to play with. This is something which I call custom access, which means which I've fixed it as per a specific number. We can always make a parameter which is like a float or integer in nature, and instead of having specific number, I could have replaced it with that parameter, which users can then change on front end as per their requirements to make it much more dynamic, right? So those are the few things which we definitely should do when we are working with trend charts. And certainly, one more thing is adding a lot of padding in between boxes. I've seen a lot of times that people make in one single dashboard, they have multiple charts, but there's just no bifurcation as to where it's ending or where it's starting. Maybe in this case, I can clearly see where it's starting and where it's ending. But a lot of time, there are so many elements that you can't really understand what's happening. And also, people add a lot of floating containers on their workbook. So does not have a constant x axis or y axis also in place. So first thing first is, if not required, don't go for floating containers. Always have tiled containers and try to distribute them equally if you can so that they look more consistent all across. And also always add extra padding and white spaces. You can never go wrong with padding and white spaces because they look much more clear and much more easily understandable to the user. So always do that whenever you make any kind of charts, not just trend charts. And I think with that, I am done. If you have any questions, maybe I can take them.
That's wonderful, Vani. I think there were few important tips that was interesting, and padding is definitely a game changer. So even I think Jyoti agrees to it. So that's a
Yeah.
wonderful tip. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can type in the Q&A module, and we can address it, or Vani can answer it for you.
Yep.
Okay, so over to the next speaker of our event today, and I believe n- not I would say not a single person in the data farm community would probably never heard like Andy's name. So that's the big name. I think it comes after Tableau. It's Andy. So that's how I relate it. So we have Andy joining us today, who is a co-author of the Big Book of Dashboards, and the name itself ideally actually gives the perfect what to say justice to it. It's a big book of dashboard, and I have been in a greatly honored to be able to speak to Andy and Steve, who have written these books. So it's a wonderful, and I have also read a few snippets of the book, although I'm not getting the entire book in India here right now. So but I have read it in between, so it's good. So Andy is a senior data evangelist for Tableau, a Salesforce company with over I think 15 years of experience, I believe, or it's more than that probably.
It's that's more than that. Yeah.
Ah, yes. So we are keeping it short so that you don't
Yeah,
find.
yeah. Make me feel younger than I am.
Yes, yes. So and I believe with you and you and Steve also run a chat the
Yeah,
monthly
that's
video
right. We
series.
do. Yeah, every month we do uh, arguments with me, Steve, Jeff, and Amanda. In fact, I just obviously saw the last one. We had
Right.
heated debates about text only dashboards in the last chart show. It was great fun.
Right, and I think you were in a spotlight at this the last chat. You and Steve, I believe.
I was leading. I was in a very argumentative lead,
Right.
and Steve was digging his heels in. So we were locking horns in hopefully an educational way.
Yes, it is. In fact, the way you conduct it is wonderful. So that kind of helps us, understand the topic as well, better than compared to any other
Well, thank you.
other podcasts. So, and we welcome you to speak to this Mumbai Tag event, and I'm happy that you are here. And I think the topic itself text is very interesting, and it kind of lines up with of what Vani has built it so far. So now
Yeah,
we have seen how to format dates using the line chart, and now let's go beyond line chart.
let's go
Right?
beyond
Over
it.
to you.
Yeah,
Over to you,
indeed.
Andy.
All right. Well, hello everybody. We were talking about crazy Iron Viz shoes. These were these were the shoes I wore in this
Wonderful.
year's Iron Viz, which quite
That's
possibly
crazy.
the coolest piece of swag I ever received in
Those
my
are
life.
wonderful.
Those are
They're
wonderful indeed.
amazing.
Yeah.
They are one of a kind. So it's an incredible privilege to do this job. And look, great to see you all. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in Mumbai with you, but it's a real honor for me to come and speak at all our Tableau user groups because all of you are using what I think is the best piece of software in the world, but you're learning the skills and spreading the skills as well. So I'm going to start just by just by mentioning or just addressing something Varney said. So Varney said she showed a very complicated line chart, and she said you can't understand it, can you? And so I've just created a very, very crazy line chart showing the number of, this is a data set we're going to look at more, number of road fatalities. Oh, I've misspelled it. So this is number of deaths on roads in the US, right? What can we see in this chart, in this message chart? There are actually things we can understand in a chart like this. We can see out of all of this time period, the biggest day, we can see some of the other biggest days, and we can see the lowest days. And we can see that there's quite a lot of volatility, right? There's clearly a seasonal trend, and in this time period, there's a vaguely upward trend. So, Varney, I agree with you in that I would never publish this chart, right? This is an awful chart, and I would never publish it. but actually really disaggregated charts, going down to really granular levels in scatter plots, bar charts, or any kind of chart can actually give you insight into your data set that you would discover in the exploration process. I am sure you know that anyway, Varney, but I thought I'd just point that out. So there you go. Anyway, that wasn't the way I was going to start. You can see a lot of years. I mean, this data set actually goes back to 1994. Oh, probably shouldn't have done that. There was a gap in the data, but yeah, you can see fatalities on the roads kind of went up a bit, down a bit, and have been going up again recently. And that is 10,000 marks of data. Anyway, we are here to talk about time. We're here to talk about new ways to visualize time. And before I do a deeper introduction to myself, I want to ask everybody here a question. I want to ask you all, which way is time? Right? And I do this because I enjoy doing this in user groups, because I'm going to ask you to just, everybody close your eyes, just go with me, and I can see our co-host, my co-hosts here. So you've all got to close your eyes and just think about where we are, not physically where we are. Think about your moment in time. Where physically are we in time? Right? Just think about your moment in this, your place in this present moment. And now, just think about tomorrow. Okay, so you're thinking about your place in tomorrow. Now think about tomorrow. And now, everybody, you've all got to do this, whether you're at a desk or in your living room, point towards tomorrow. Point wherever tomorrow is. Where is it? Point to it. So I can see, at least I can see Viraj, Vanni, and Jyoti. You've all got to point somewhere. I can see Viraj pointing. I can't see Jyoti pointing. Or Vanni. Which way are you pointing? Oh, yeah, I can see you pointing. Brilliant. Right. So, okay, you can all open your eyes again. Viraj, you pointed. Which way did you point? You've pointed
to my right side.
Okay, Varney, you pointed to your right side.
Yep.
Jyoti, where did you point?
Ahead.
Ahead. Interesting. Right. Did anybody? Ajasvi says ahead. So just type which way you pointed. Did you point up, down, left, right, forward, backwards? I find this a really interesting exercise because it turns out most people point forwards. Certainly in a Western European and North American culture. I haven't actually done this experiment widely across Asian user groups or Indian user groups. So most of us are going forwards. That is the way we walk forwards. That is the way we think of time progressing. I find for a lot of people, we read from left to right. We are accustomed to looking at data from left to right, so left and right is common. But I can see Nishu point it upwards. Some people point backwards. Some people point in all sorts of different directions. And I just find this fascinating because if time is moving forwards, well, we don't visualize time in a forwards manner, do we? Right? We visualize it left to right, even though our physical sense is different. I'm not going to go into more detail, but there are whole books on which way time is, but we won't talk about that for now. Don't really need to add any introductions to myself. I've been at Tableau for 13 years, and I actually built my first dashboard in 2006. So it's 18 years that I've been in the industry. I choose not to have a professional headshot photograph on this slide. This is a photograph of me at the best named village in England. This is a village called Great Chart, which is in Kent, southeast England, and perhaps that's where I should retire to. Jyoti, you've said you would like to see a 3D model pointing forwards. Well, I actually had this hidden, but I'm going to show you this. Here is the slide. This is from about this is from about 7 or 8 years ago, and it shows the US NASDAQ, the stock exchange, in 3D. So basically, you could put some 3D goggles on, and then you press go, and you would ride the chart. So this is time moving forward, right? You could look around and interact, and the notations were telling you what was happening. So basically, this peak ahead is the dot-com bust of 2000. Those of you who are old enough to remember that. And in this, you get this sense of like, wow, the internet, everything's going brilliant with the internet. And then in March, the dot-com bubble burst and everybody lost their money. And down we go, right? So this is time moving forwards in the way in which we might match our mental model. But you can all see this line, which shows exactly the same information, and you've digested that in about 20 milliseconds, whereas this takes a really long time to consume. So they do exist, Jyoti, and it is a roller coaster ride, as you say, but they're time consuming. So not very common. All right. Anyway, where were we? We're going to talk about this today. I want to talk about visualizing time, and then I'm going to spend about 20 minutes in Tableau showing you ways to visualize time, and then we'll summarize. There'll be a little bit of history. Also, do keep comments coming in chat. I can see chat as we go, and we'll be fine. So, how do you visualize time? If I ask you this question, whether you spell it with an S or Z, I don't know. There are many ways to visualize time. This is actually probably the most common way we visualize time. What is the time right now? We don't always look at trends. This is a way to visualize time as you wait for the application to load and contemplate your position in the universe and think, is this the best way I should be spending my life here? The existential crisis visualized this way. But the timeline, for most purposes, as Varney just showed, most of the time we are going to visualize data over time using a line chart. And it's an amazing chart. It uses slope and angle and position to encode data so we can see trends as things change over time. But what I want to convince you in the next 20 minutes is that the line chart can be your worst enemy. If you only stick with line charts, you might be hiding more than the chart reveals. So at the end of this, I want you to have 5 charts in your toolbox that you can do to explore data in a slightly different way. Now I'm going to ask you a trivia question. We're going to look at the history of a very quick history of data viz lesson. Type the answer to this question. In what year was the first chart with a timeline created? And I specifically mean a chart with a uniform x-axis where the x-axis showed time. What year do you think that was? While they're typing, Viraj, Varney, Jyoti, do you want to? What do you think?
That's a very tricky question. You have
Of
asked
course.
year, not the century.
I would go in centuries, like some
Yeah.
not in years, definitely.
So, well, Vedant's gone 18th century. Do you want to go earlier or later than that?
No,
Uh,
very
Oh,
precise
we have a
answer.
very specific.
yeah, very precise. Very precise. Well, I'm going to say Vedant with his or her. Sorry, I don't know if I don't know your gender. You've gone very vague with the 18th century, but you were correct. The first timeline was created in 1753, so nearly 270 years ago, by this chap. He was a French guy, and he wanted to create a chart showing the full span of human history from 1000 BC to 1753. Each one of these marks is a person or a thing that happened in a given year, and at the top, he drew an x-axis where each little mark represented 1 year of humanity. And this was the first timeline of uniform time ever made. Now, this is an amazing piece of work. He didn't really think about how much paper he needed. So the chart he built was 54 feet or 18 meters long. So he had to kind of house it in this amazing wooden device. So it was all rolled up and you could use these little scrolling things to go left to right, right to left. So it's like an iPad scrolling window. It was portable to an extent. I mean, this thing's about 50 centimeters from here to here. It's pretty big. But it was amazing, right? What an amazing innovation. Unfortunately, it was incredibly expensive. He didn't sell very many and he died a pauper. But he left this legacy. From 1753, 12 years later, 1765.
And probably that device also gave us the scrolling left to right,
Well,
going back in time and right.
exactly, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
But Joseph Priestley thought, hang on a minute, what if I could just draw the same thing, but just shrink it all down to a single piece of paper? So he created two incredible things in 1765. This one's the chart of biography. He did one called the chart of history too, showing empires. But in this case, what you have here is each one of these marks represents the lifespan, so the birth and death of a period across the same 4,000 year lifespan. The horizontal categories are types of people, so you've got religious people, poets, warriors, artists, etc. So this, again, in one single span of the eye, he said, you could capture the growth of humanity and human endeavor over time. So this was another amazing innovation. And he even visualized some uncertainty. So Pyrrhus, he couldn't find the data point for when Pyrrhus was born. So he visualized the uncertain data with these little dots. And you can see a couple on this little segment here. So he built a Gantt chart way before Gantt built a Gantt chart. He was thinking about uncertainty, and really amazing piece of work. But these still aren't timelines. For an actual slope chart, a line chart, we had to wait till 1786. And this was William Playfair, who drew this in a book called The Statistical Breviary. And it shows imports and exports for England, Norway, and Denmark, right? A little bit dry of a topic, but look at it. It's got a beautiful axis. It's got grid lines. It's got color. Annotations are in the right place. You can see the trends. It's got a nice title, data source. This is everything you should be trying to achieve when you build things in Tableau, right? Can you build this in Tableau? Yes, you could build it in Tableau completely. Here, I built the same thing in Tableau, right? And it's an amazing piece of work. So here we go. This is the history of data visualization. One of the highlights of my career was going to Princeton Library in the US and seeing all of these charts in the flesh. The Dubourg one, this is the only one left that we know of in existence. So it's amazing seeing these things. The reason I talk about this here at this Mumbai user group is partly because I love the history of this field and I just want more people to love it. But in 1786, Playfair drew a line chart. And I sometimes think we stopped thinking and experimenting because this was so good. It's like, well, we'll just draw line charts for time-based data from now on. And maybe we have stopped thinking creatively. So with that, let's switch to Tableau. And I'm going to show you some ways to visualize time data in Tableau, which are not line charts. For each chart, I'm going to explain the data set if it's a new data set, and I'm going to show you why the line chart hides things that the other chart reveals. All right. So type any questions, type any comments as we go. But here we go. So the first chart I wanted to talk about is how to visualize something that changes in the nature that the 100-meter world record changes. So it's 15 years since Usain Bolt smashed the world record, 9.58 seconds back in 2009. The problem with this line chart is that because the line slopes between these data points, it implies that the record was trending down from the time that Jesse Owens set the record to the time that Willie Williams set the record. But that's not the nature of how this changed. The record was 10.2 seconds until it wasn't, right? The way we can visualize that in Tableau is using a step chart. And to get that, you can go on here and press the path button and choose a step chart, which more accurately visualizes data, which is consistent over time until the moment it isn't. So the record for 100 meters was 10.2 seconds. It was 10.2 seconds here, and it was only here that it became 10.1 seconds. So this is called a step chart, and you get to that using the line type button on the path shelf. All right, they get more complicated as we go on. The next one I want to talk about is a slope chart. A slope chart. All right, so I've changed data set. Now we're looking at bicycle usage for the London cycle hire scheme. So when we don't use them so much, but when you've got a bike at a docking station, you pay some money, you ride the bike, and you park it at a different docking station somewhere else in London. And I've got data here for 8 of the docking stations in Europe, and I'm showing the data throughout 2017. The line chart is cool. The line chart shows us that two of the stations have a really big peak in sort of the middle months of the year, but all the others stay fairly flat. That's good insight. But my question is, what's the difference between the start and the end of the data, of the time period? Well, it's slightly hard to see. The chart you need, well, one of the charts you can use to answer that question is called a slope chart. The easiest way to build one in an ad hoc manner is just grab all the data points that are not the first and last month and exclude them. And now you're all seeing something that you did not see in the first chart. Albertgate was the 8th most popular at the start of the year and happened to be the most popular of these 8 at the end of the year. Even if I undo and leave Albertgate highlighted, but you have all the data points in the middle, it's still actually quite hard to see that change in rank from 8 to 1 that Albertgate has. So if your chart only really cares about what happened at the start and the end of these data periods, just get rid of everything in the middle. You don't need to show it, because then you're really highlighting the end and start. This is in this case, I've just manually excluded data points, but there are various ways you can use calculations to sort of automatically and dynamically set what a start and end point is. So you can have this year compared to whatever the date 2 years ago is, or something similar. I'm not going to go in detail on that, but if you Google dynamic slope chart, you will find a few methods for doing it. So that's a slope chart. Yeah, Jyoti, you say you've never seen a method to create a slope chart so quickly. Well, the challenge here is, this is a really fast way to create a slope chart, but it's a terrible way to create one for production, because I've just done it quickly.
Yeah.
But as the data
Good for the quick analysis,
Exactly, right? Yeah, and the quick analysis, that's something, for those of you who are newish to Tableau, it's so important never to forget that Tableau is not just about creating a chart to put on a dashboard to show your boss. It is also about playing with data, exploring, literally mucking around. I'm just, what do these two do, right? And then doing all these things in an ad hoc way to find insights. So keep doing that. Right. Chart number 3 of 6, we might even do 7, depending on time, is a cycle plot. So I've got the same data set. We're still with the bikes you hire in London. I've changed the visualization. So on the y-axis is the number of journeys from all the stations across London. And for each day, the line shows the number of journeys over a 24-hour period. So we're seeing something the insight. This line chart gives us great insight already. Weekend days have a peak around midday. Everyone's leisure riding. They're chilling out on their Sunday. Whereas the weekdays have peaks at 8 o'clock and at 5 o'clock, because basically many more bikes are being used to commute on those days. All right. So the line chart gives us these insights. But my question here says, I want to compare the hours of 8 a.m. and noon across the 7 days of the week. And it's like, well, how do I do that? I can go, here's noon, and then I have to go, here's noon, and then I've got to go, here's noon, here. And by this time, I've forgotten what the first data point was. So what can we do? Well, for that, I'm going to create a cycle plot, which is an amazing way of exploring seasonality in your data. I have got weekday and hour on the column shelf. So weekday is a bigger slice of time than hour. So a weekday is 24 hours, an hour is just 1 hour. And by default, Tableau or most views would put the bigger time slice to the left. But with a cycle plot, we want to invert that and put the longer time slot to the right of the shorter time slot. And now we have a cycle plot. Let's just get rid of the date. So what's this showing me? This is showing something really quite amazing. At noon, each one of these data points represents the number of journeys on any day of the week. So we can see that noon, you can see there's more journeys on a Saturday and a Sunday, which are the start and end of the line, and fewer journeys on the weekdays. And you can contrast that with 8 a.m., where there is an N-shaped curve, because fewer people are riding bikes at 8 a.m. on a Saturday and Sunday. So you get in the cycle plot a really interesting chart showing seasonality. I find it amazing that there are this many people riding bikes at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. But this is called the cycle plot, and it's a really good way of looking at seasonality. I'll also, you might, oh yeah, something else you can do is add an average reference line. So now I can see the detail for 8 a.m., but I can also see the average number of hours for each hour of the, the average number of journeys for each hour of the day. One last little thing, you may wonder, Andy, why have you used an area chart instead of just a line chart? I could have used a line chart, that would have been fine, but I used an area chart purely because this shape reminds me of Batman, circa 1995. So yeah, that's just silly, but there you go. But cycle plots are amazing when you're looking for seasonality. Josué says 5 and 6 p.m. is for pub hopping. Indeed, and you can actually see through the weekend starts earlier and earlier. You know, more people are leaving work earlier on a Thursday and a Friday than they are Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So cycle plots are great. They do require quite a lot of space. So you might find you need a wide space to do a cycle plot justice. All right. Any questions? No, just Josué saying he likes to ride a bike after a few beers. I see. The Tableau police would be frowning quick and dirty. You see, Josué, you said quick and dirty would make people frown. As somebody who was at Tableau back when we were very young, I would say no. We would, if any Tableau police frowned at quick and dirty analysis, they're in the wrong, because the power of Tableau just to throw data around, keep looking at it any old way until you find the right insight. That's the power of Tableau, right? I can make 99 charts and throw 98 of them away, and that's amazing. And I can do that in a matter of minutes. So quick and dirty. I love quick and dirty. All right. Change of data set. Unfortunately, slight change of mood with the data too. This is a line chart showing the number of fatalities on roads in the US from 1994 onwards. So this is the aggregated version of the chart I started this session with. What can we see? First of all, we can see the numbers are a long way from the zero axis. There are a lot of people dying on roads in the US. There was a period of descent and safety, but the number has been going up really significantly. The latest data, the data is available to 2023, and fatalities are now at the highest ever in this data set. And that's a combination of cars getting heavier, fewer police speeding tickets, and post-COVID post-COVID challenges. But the heavier cars in the US are killing more people. You're safer in the car if it's heavier, but you're killing pedestrians more likely. So to me, this is a political issue, but one that I can't change on my own. But heavy cars are not good. Anyway, my question here is the same. What are the seasonal trends? Well, I just said you should build a cycle plot. Let's look at seasonality. Maybe we could look at year and month. So now I've broken down each year. There's the 12 months of 1996. And I said, let's build a cycle plot, because that's a great way to do seasonality, right? That's what I just said. So I build the cycle plot. And in this case, this cycle plot looks a bit dull because there's no interesting seasonal trend other than there's more deaths in July than there are in February because of winter generally. But the overall annual, the trend over time is stronger than the trend within the months, right? So in this case, the cycle plot isn't really an appropriate thing to do. And this is one of the really important lessons you should take away as you build your analytical skills, is that if you were to ever ask me, what chart should I show for this data? I couldn't answer the question because I don't know what you're trying to show, but I don't know, unless I know what your data looks like, I couldn't say it should be a cycle plot because some cycle plots work depending on the shape of the data itself. It's a spaghetti chart, says Dylan. Indeed. So it didn't work. What can we do instead? Well, we can create a highlight table. I'm going to put one time measure on columns, one time measure on rows, and instead of the green pill being on rows, which draws an axis, I'm going to put it on the color shelf, and 3, 2, 1, everything's changed, right? Again, for those newish to Tableau, if you put a green continuous pill on a row shelf, Tableau will draw an axis and a line or whatever mark you've specified. If you take that off and you only have blue discrete pills on the columns and row shelf, and that continuous thing is in color, then Tableau will draw a highlight table. And now we're seeing inside that the line chart showed, but in a somewhat different way. We can see exactly which month had the highest number of fatalities, July 2005. And we can see that even though fatalities have been going up, they've really been concentrated in August, September, and October in the most recent years. So the highlight table is great. And one of the cool things we can do is we can change the aggregation. So I'm looking, so in this, each block here represents a month and a year. But what if my question was, well, on which calendar days of the year do the most fatalities happen? Well, that's easy in Tableau because I can change from a year to a day. So I'll do that. I'm going to change the color shelf. I'm just going to change the color ramp as well a little. Make that 2600. I think maybe 2400. Right. And now each block represents the number of fatalities on that calendar day of the year. So over the duration of this data set, on January the 1st, there have been 3,344 fatalities compared to only 2,000 on January the 2nd. It's what jumps out is that the highest day of fatalities on roads in the US is July the 4th. That's their Independence Day. This data is not normalized for the number of journeys or the number of people on the roads because a lot of people are driving, but it is the day in which the most fatalities happen. Highlight tables are absolutely brilliant. I'll show you a nice happier one in a moment. Another great thing about highlight tables is that you might be in the place where you're trying to get your workmates to escape from spreadsheet tables. They love their spreadsheets, right? Well, one of the things you can do is give them highlight tables. So I'm just going to put fatalities on the label shelf, make this a square. And now, it's like, well, here's your spreadsheet. I've just added color for you so that your eye is drawn to the most important numbers you need to see in this table. So yes, you can have your numbers. It's fine. I know tables are great. And another thing you can do is, what if we could make this tooltip contain a chart? Maybe I want to see the breakdown of fatalities through this 24-hour period. Well, in order to do that, we can use what is called a viz in tooltip. So I've already created the chart. So you go into tooltip, you choose insert sheets, you put in your tooltip sheet. And now I can see in January when those fatalities happen through that 24-hour period. And most fatalities happen between midnight and 4 a.m. when people are going home from their New Year's Eve parties. Contrast that to July the 4th, where most of the fatalities are happening at the end of the day, when most of the people are going home from their parties. But this, if you're stuck in that loop of trying to convince people to go beyond the spreadsheet, giving them a highlight table and putting a chart inside the tooltip is just some ways to just tease them into the field and be like, yeah, but we could do this a lot better, right? So yeah, good stuff. Right. Yes, high spirits on the 1st and 4th, 1st of Jan and 4th of July says are just sweet indeed. I'm going to show you a much happier highlight table and look at a different data set. So now this is a highlight table showing how common birth dates are in the US and in England and Wales. I'll ask, is it anybody's birthday this week or this month? Give me a shout or tell me your birth date. In fact, Viraj, when's your birthday?
It's 26th November.
26th of November. So if you were English, the 26th of November, you would have a fairly uncommon birthday. That's the 233rd most common day of birth in England, Wales. It's even now. Sorry, what was it?
26th November. Yeah.
26.
Oh, it's still.
Now, in the US, it's incredibly low. I wonder why that is. Because Thanksgiving is on the last Thursday in November.
Yes.
And as if by magic, fewer births. There are fewer deliveries on this time. In the UK, I love this. If the most common birthday in England and Wales is the 26th of September, anybody who can do maths will think, well, 9 months before the 26th and 25th. That's Christmas Day. So that gives you an idea of what the English and the Welsh get up to on Christmas Day in England. We'll move on. There's loads of amazing trade. And Josby says, yes, in England, the school year starts in September. So you get a big spike in September anyway, as people trying to get their kids to be old in the class. In England and Wales, New Year's Eve is kind of in the middle, 120th most common. But the very next day, just 24 hours later, January the 1st, 364. And so it's amazing. I think this data is amazing because it just reveals how giving birth is a real managed process these days in modern society. So there you go. That's highlight tables. As Daval says, year end is a very busy period. The surgeons and the midwives, they want to get out so they can go and party. Right. I did say I would always show you a line chart for every data set. And I haven't shown you one yet. So here is the line chart for the number of live births per day in England and Wales. And this is for a 1 year period in 2014. And this is going back to the thing I opened with in response to Varney. This is not a chart I would publish on a dashboard because it's quite painful on my eyes to look at. But it does reveal really interesting things. You can see there are about 52 troughs. And each one of these troughs is a Saturday and Sunday. These are the 52 weekends of the year, again, showing that hospital-delivered births are dictated by the working week. So, again, probably wouldn't... what's the better way to show that? Show it as weekday, right? Well, let's do that as weekday. Let's do it as a bar chart. Look, so that's the number of live births by weekday. It's just we just don't give births on the weekend in the UK. How am I doing for time, Viraj?
We still have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. All right. Well, I've got 2 left to go. So one more to look on the highlight table, and now we're looking at drought data. So the drought index in the US measures how severe the drought is at any given month in the US. And I've got the highlight table showing severity of drought across the lower 48 states. And my tooltip shows severity of the drought actually within in each state. So this is good, but we all have very, very powerful eyes. Our eyes can see lots of stuff inside this square itself. So another way we can visualize time is to actually draw the chart inside the table or inside the space in the grid. And to do that, I'm going to build a map. So I'm going to put latitude on rows, longitude on columns, state on detail, and make that a filled map. And I did longitude. Oh yeah, I got my roads. I got my roads wrong. That's right. 17 years I've been using Tableau. I still can't get latitude and longitude the right way around. There's my phone. So this is a small multiple map. I'll show you one that's finished. Because we can actually put really fine level detail inside this highlight table. So you can see interesting things such as in California, you can now see that trend across multiple years. So I show you this one in climate data again, because I want you to be driven by the data itself. I could have shown you this small multiple for US road fatalities 2016 up to 2022 actually. But if I do that, you'll see something that just isn't quite right. So we'll go year and month, and then I'll show you one that I finished. So here is a small multiple showing road fatalities by month for every year in my data set. And as we've seen a couple of times, this is a really bad chart. I mean, but going back to what I said right at the start, it's a very useful chart because it tells me that it does not matter what month or year it is, there are always more fatalities in Texas, California, and Florida, right? So again, as you are seeking the best chart for presentation, for putting in a dashboard, the data and the trends in the data itself will determine what you're showing, not necessarily the desire to show seasonality, because if you put this on a dashboard, people would laugh at you, right? But it's a good chart in the insight phase. Okay, last chart. This is the last one. So we're going to look at what's called an index chart, and it's my final data set. We're now looking at video views over time for 10 of the most popular videos in YouTube, well, based in 2016. So the line chart gives us good insight. Gangnam Style was seen 72 million times in a single week in 2012. Adele's Hello was seen 129 million times in 2015. Brilliant. Great line chart. But I want to know which one hit 1 billion views first. But, well, I can't see that. The line chart is hiding that question. In order to answer that question, I have to do a few things. First, I need to create a running total. That's so easy in Tableau. You just right click and choose running total. So we can see Gangnam Style was 2.6 billion back when we had this data set. Next, I'm going to add a constant line so we can see when they all got over 1 billion. So it's 1, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 zeros for 1 billion. Here's a quick tip in Tableau. If you are too lazy and don't want to write 9 zeros, you can type 1B for 1 billion, or 1M for 1 million, or 1K for 1,000. But I want 1 billion. So that's a tiny little shortcut to creating a constant line.
Super helpful.
That's a good one, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we can see they all got over 1 billion, but we can't really see who got there first. In order to do that, we have to create what is called an index chart. Again, I'm not going to go through the instructions now, but I'll switch to what it looks like. The difference is, instead of visualizing time on the x-axis, so this x-axis is now an index, and it basically, each one of these videos was released on a different day. So I'm showing days since release rather than calendar time, which means we can, so that they all, this is the first day they were released. And now we can see that Adele was the first one to get to a billion. It took 90 days for a billion people to watch that video. And this is called an index chart. It's incredibly useful for when you are trying to compare the growth or the change in something when those things started at different times. And basically, you're doing indexes and running totals and getting the partitioning and addressing by right. But really, really powerful data chart type. Whew. All right. We have done our Tableau time. Let's wrap up. And I want to know your thoughts, what you've learned. Three things first. First, hopefully, you've learned that I love line charts, but I only love line charts when they're done in conjunction with other ones, and you've looked for the insights that are in different chart types. Second, in looking for those different chart types, sometimes you find charts that are brilliant, and sometimes you find charts that are useless for a presentation perspective. So, cycle higher was why I showed you the cycle plot, because the cycle plot looked terrible on fatalities data. The drought small multiple looked great, but it looked terrible on the fatalities data. So you have to use the data itself determines the best view. And the third reflection, the third thing is this is an amazing field. It's got well over 250 years of people trying things out with different and ever increasing technology. Every time you drag and drop something in Tableau, you're part of that history. You've got all that stuff behind you, and you might be able to do things in the future as well with what's gone before us. So there you go. That is how to visualize time in Tableau. I'd love to know if you've got any reflections or questions, learned anything new. Tell me what you think. And thank you very much.
That was wonderful. I think the way line charts probably show up first, but then the more you add context to it or try to find in the more deeper sense, that's where you can bring in more variations to it by cycling or stuff. So that really brings out the meaning behind the data. So that was
Indeed.
wonderful. Yep.
Thank
And I
you.
would say the time spent well today. So
Yeah,
in learning.
absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, and anybody have any other questions?
Yep.
We can.
Before we close up, yep. So last one was the best. We use to make separate data set for launch to date. Oh, that's interesting, Sagar. That's a wonderful point.
Yeah.
So launch to date, how it just like the when it hit the 1 million users, I think we can also see how the product did from its launch date.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just
Great.
going to paste. Also, I've just pasted the link to my newsletter if people want to follow what I'm doing.
Thanks for sharing. I'll be adding all these links in the summary, the email that you'll get with the recording. So
Great.
don't worry, you'll get everyone.
Good. Good.
Great. I think. Thank you, everyone. Jyoti, do you have anything to add?
No, I think I would also like to just thank you, Vani and Andy. I also usually get these questions like which chart to use for this data, and you have put on a very valid point that you are the one who need to decide which is the best chart for your data based on
Yeah.
what you think about what the data is about and what it is trying to tell. So yeah, definitely an amazing session, time well spent, and thank you to both of you for this wonderful session.
My pleasure.
And great, thank you. And keep in touch. We'll be posting the recording soon, and also there are a few upcoming events lined up. We'll let you know about that as well
Yeah.
from Mumbai Tech
Don't
and the
forget
Iron
this.
Ways. And
Iron
don't forget
Viz.
the Iron Ways. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have posted the link. Go on the link and just read about it if you're interested. Just go for it.
Yeah,
We
and
are
do
here to
do
cheer
reach
up.
out. Yeah, right. And do reach out if you have any questions. We'll be happy to help you out, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And lastly, thanks to the audience. Thanks everybody for joining the talk. Uh,
Yeah,
Great one.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just stop the recording for now.